Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight, we're going to kind of do a little bit of the same, a little bit of different, and carry on our merry way and see where things go. Uh, going to kick things off with a little material design work. There's an open PR that I want to merge. The 5.3 release is slowly building up stuff in it. I've been kind of focusing my efforts elsewhere, so it's not like the project's going away, and I don't want it to stagnate. But I've been building other things, which is what we're going to look at as well. So, more Velopack tonight. And please don't laugh at me. I am not much of a React developer, but I'm learning. So, we'll have fun. We'll have fun. That is the aim of the game. Okay, so this PR here, for anyone who wants to follow along at home, if I can remember how to copy paste, there we go. Okay, so this is a bug here that came in. So this one here is numeric up down does not update with values outside of the range, right? So this guy here is kind of interesting. When we pull this up and play around with it, because I want to test it. This is an interesting one, and there's kind of some precedents already set. Like in WPF, if you bind the text value of a text box to say an int or a double, you get a little bit of this. It's not quite the same. But there is this concept of having a box that you type into and the value entered being invalid or out of range in this case, right? So in this case here, minimum of -2.5, maximum positive 2.5, value of 0, right? So first one, value 0, input 20, which is way above the maximum, right? Lost focus, and then I appreciate the Sandfox 922 putting this in. So the view shows 2.5, and the value shows 2.5. Okay, great. That's kind of what I would expect. Value 2.5, input 30, lost focus. View shows 30, value shows 2.5. This one kind of surprises me. I'm not clear why one of these would do it, especially with the trigger being lost focus. This appears to be going from a default value of 0 from a non-default value is the only key difference, and so that one's a little more interesting to me, and I wonder if there's something else subtly at play here. This one here, value is 2.5. Enter 30. Increase button, click. The view still shows 30. The value still shows 2.5. Yeah, and so this is here. The set current value is not clamped on minimum maximum. That's probably a reasonable guess in terms of this. Corvins took a run at it. Let's see. Set the text of the internal text box to the current value when, regardless of whether it can be parsed or not. I think that's probably fair, but I think we're going to look at exactly how this works. And yeah, and then entering non-numerical value. So this is a numeric up-down control. Not shockingly, it requires a numeric value. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a numeric up-down control. And I think I think reverting to the previous value and not necessarily to 0 is correct. That's kind of normal. Like, this is one of those cases where I can see people arguing for one or the other. Like, if somebody erases it and types in ABC, right, that's not a valid value. So it's like, yeah. I think going back to the regular value is, rather than 0, is probably correct. So that's not where we want to go. We want to go here. Okay, and this is one where we may pause for just a moment and go and write, because we've got some UI tests around this, and this feels like something where I want to write some UI tests for it, just because. Let's see. So this one here, try parses the. So previously we were try parsing the value, getting it, and then we were set current value, but it wasn't being bounded. And so this is calling coerce numeric value, and I might need to go and look at where this function is. Let's just check out this branch real quick. Okay, so material design, this one here, checkout. And then for people who haven't seen it, I've got the new fancy hotkey bound up. So Open an external editor, or I'm sorry, open repo and external editor for my preferences. So if we go, where is the fancy tool? External tools. So I've got external tool pointed at Visual Studio so that I can just go Control Shift E and it pops it open. It does, because it's feeding in the repo directory rather than like a solution file or similar. It does get you into this view, but then I can just double click the solution or the project or whatever I want and poof, I'm in. So it's not perfect, but it's getting closer. Getting closer. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to change our demo to the regular one. And then this has the fix in place. So let's just go to numeric up, down. Yeah, that one. Okay. And specifically, what are we talking about here? We're talking line 216. Okay, I'm in the wrong place. Because I should be on up, down, base, I think is the actual file. Yeah, up, down, base, the non-generic. And so this is 216. Okay, so what does coerce numeric value do? This one actually clamps. It's interesting to do that here. It almost, like, this is doing the correct thing. However, I almost want to probably okay. What's kind of triggering my spidey sense is this is a coerce function. And a coerce function is meant to be used as part of a dependency property. And usually I find that if I have to manually call one of these, either the value change to the coerce functions directly, I usually just refactor out the bits that I care about into a separate method to try to leave these coerce ones just related to the dependency property. It's a little pedantic, but it saves on any amount of confusion, right? So if there's some shared logic, send it elsewhere. And part of it is because you end up having to pass in the control itself because it wants the control to be able to read the up, down, and similar. And so it's like, it works. It works. Okay. So let's see here, because this is because the weird part here is this is going to set value, which is also going to feed right back through this coerce, doesn't it? Why not? Actually, now that I think about it. Okay, well let's write some tests. Let's write some tests. This feels like something that we test our way to victory on. Okay, so UI tests, WPF, up down controls, numeric up down tests. And we'll just do the well, I guess the other one must have been using decimal, given because I'm tempted to. I need to quit clicking on this one. Given that this was based on this, I'm tempted. Let's do decimal, and we'll actually use the use cases right here. Hey, Izzy. Welcome. Currently taking a look at this numeric up-down pull request on the material design. We're going to look at a PR that I opened on Velopack. Remind me, Izzy, I want to hit you up more on that MSI stuff. So you're going to see a PR into the Velopack repo, effectively putting back the old MSI. That's kind of a stopgap immediately because I have a project at work that I'm looking to migrate, and I need feature parity with the old Cloud Squirrel stuff. So I just need that in place for now. But we kind of want to circle back to the MSI stuff that we were doing last week, because I feel like there's a good solution there, and I appreciated your messages. Okay, I am confused as to how and why this wasn't working before, and I have a strange feeling it's this. It surprises me here doing this because dropping the else block means it's always setting the text. But if look at the bundle installer instead. Yeah, that is when you mentioned that to me, that got me thinking that that might be something that I want to look at doing because I was discussing with Kaylin some of the challenges with the MSI installer, specifically everything that we manually handle um, inside of our setup exe, and the fear was trying to maintain both of those, and so the idea of the bundle installer was appealing to investigate. Um, I strongly suspect a lot of the people asking for MSIs are only doing it because that the packaging support that comes with MSIs. There's so much sysadmin stuff that leverages packaging and can read the stuff out of an MSI, and so IT people feel more warm and fuzzy when they have an MSI rather than an arbitrary executable. So it's like I get it from a feel good IT perspective, an MSI is probably a worthwhile thing to have. It obviously doesn't work everywhere, um, but for some people, they don't care about that. So I'm thinking I want to circle back to doing that, to doing more of like a bundle installer as a longer term thing instead. Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to look at. After your message, I started doing some reading on it because I will admit I'm out of my depth on that, and so I was trying to learn more. Let's see here. So, but I want to get this guy merged, but I think I want to do it by adding some tests in first. So let's look here. Let's see. Uh, max and min assignments are enforced when typing. See, this is what surprises me is this here kind of. What are you doing? Max min assignments, coerce value to be in range. Yeah, and I really think that people just don't like because I was looking into like the Intune stuff on what it takes to actually have executables, and it looked like the only difference is the sysadmin has to like specify the switches for a silent install and whatnot versus the tool just automatically populating those boxes for them. And I'm like, it felt like something that we could document our way to victory, but I need the old MSI behavior for now just so that I can upgrade a particular project at work. So I am selfishly motivated to put the old one back immediately, just so that I can get my current one handled and that client all warm and fuzzy. But then long term, I want to do something better. Let's see, set minimum. So this is just setting the min max. Uh, this is so we don't actually have one for doing the typing. It doesn't look like. It looks like this is the closest one, but we don't have anything that actually types values in. Okay, so that's probably how this bug came through. Is we don't actually have a bug doing this. So let's go through, and we're gonna just straight use the bug report as this. So minimum 2.5, maximum 0.5. I think I said that wrong. Minimum minus 2.5, maximum 2.5, right? And then we'll just be real explicit. Value gets 0. It doesn't really matter what the button increment is because in these tests, they are not actually doing this. Okay. And then really what we need is something else to focus. So we're going to just go, actually, I think what we might do is we just might do a stack panel. I think. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. Now, put a button next. Really? You can't read my mind? Bummer. Alternate focus. Element. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so this is going to end up being stack panel. I'm going to make you stack panel. I still want this variable here. I want to go var numeric up down. And now we can do that. Okay, so now the rest of this just continues to work. And then I want to do var button gets await stack panel. Hey, stop it. Stop it. Get element button. This, I don't remember if get element is. Yeah. We'll see which button comes back. I'm actually not confident whether this is a depth first or a breadth first search. I think it's breadth first, meaning does it, because there are buttons inside of this numeric up down control, right? Because there's the plus minus. If it's depth first, it is going to go down and grab this one here and find the ones here. If it's breadth first, it'll grab this one because this one's at the higher level. I hope it's breadth first. If not, we might go log a bug against my XAML test library. Okay, so there's all that, and then I think we just want to get rid of all of this work here. And then recorder success. Did we not have recorder success? Oh, that's bad. So by not calling recorder success, it means this thing's going to output an image every time regardless. That's exciting. Oh, and this we should actually probably move to the other one because this is the numeric up-down tests. And I think we want to do this in the decimal up-down test. Yeah, I kind of thought I did the same thing. Did I mess it up everywhere? Yep. I messed it up everywhere. At some point, I'm going to write myself a custom little XUnit thing to do this work for me. Part of what makes that mildly difficult is the way this test recorder works, is it's abusing some caller attributes to get the unit test method name. If I put it inside of an XUnit attribute, it gets slightly more complicated to be able to locate it. Let's just make sure we fix that recorder change on all of these. Because that's just stupid on my part. I really should probably be checking to make sure that, oh, nope. Because all this success method does is tell the test recorder that, hey, the test completed successfully, don't take screenshots. Because otherwise what will happen is the dispose on this test recorder grabs a screenshot of whatever the app's currently at before it shuts down so that it, because for like a UI test, you want to see the state of the app. So it's just a quick and easy way to basically take screenshots all the way through. Because I'm way too lazy. Okay, so this actually needs to be decimal up down rather than numeric up down. So this is going to be decimal up down. Let's see here. I don't have Karnak running. There we go. Okay, so that gets me to there. That gets me to there. That gets me to there. Okay, so test cases that we care about. So value 0, type in 20, and then move focus. This is expected to work. Okay, so let's grab text box. Do we set text? I think we can just set text. So type in 20. Learn how to type is the next one. And then we want to move focus. So we want to go button. What is my focus? Move keyboard focus to the button. And then I want to go that. I should probably learn how to spell here. There we go. Get text, and then I think what I want to do is get value as well. Why do I not have get value on here? Oh, probably because I'm not generating the extension methods for decimal, I bet. Is that here? I am generating helpers for decimal up, down. Why does it not have a thing for value? Oh, because I'm on text box. I don't want the text. I want to do this on decimal up, down. So decimal up, down. Get value. Will give it to me. Oh, I guess the up down control doesn't have a text property, so in order to check the text, I have to do that. And then this needs to be like this and like this. Okay. So this is expected to pass. Let's just see if it actually does. We can probably get rid of the bits that are retrieving the plus minus buttons as well, because we aren't gonna be using those buttons at all. Okay, so failed. What failed? Strings differ. So that actually, that partially makes me feel better and partially makes me feel worse. Await, task, delay. I don't know. Give me 3 seconds. I just want to visually check this to make sure that it is in fact moving the focus to the button. Actually, let's see. Type or trying to remember the send input. That's what I want. I want it to actually type in things. Send input. What is my? There's, sorry, I'm trying to remember my shorthand for this. Send keyboard input. That's what it is. Like I know I wrote myself an extension method for this because I was way too lazy to like do work. And it wants that. So this one may shock some people that this works, but this doesn't. Kind of a trick, and I should probably give myself an overload. There was a reason, something I bumped into that limits it. So what's happening here is send keyboard input takes in a formatable string, not a string. Most people think that when you put a $sign in front of the quotes, that just does string format. And that's true most of the time. But secretly, the compiler will look at where you're assigning that $sign quote stringy thing and then decide whether it's a formatable string or a string. And that's what you're going to get. A formatable string just lets you do introspection on it and be able to do this. But I probably could allow myself just a regular string overload here and just add some text input. Right? It does. The only reason it does this is so that I can do some fancy stuff and pass in, fancy keys and modifier keys and all of that jazz. Like it's clever and slick, but needs that. Okay, so that should run test. And then I want to see, because I don't think we were hitting the lost focus. Okay, so that worked as expected. I kind of want to do something like modifier keys, control, What is the? I should look at this real quick because it's. I can send in modifier keys followed by. Argument is not modifier keys. Yeah, so I want to send in modifier keys followed by key, I think. I think I want to do control keys. So basically select all the text and then slap that's then type in the 20. Because I don't know if you caught it, but when it was typing that in, it was actually going through and yeah, let's do this real quick. We're gonna slow this sucker down real quick. Oh, delay. I just want to make absolute certain I see what's happening here. There's no point in chasing this if I've got a bad test. Like obviously this one's working, but there. Selected it all, typed in 20. Moves focus. Great. Okay. Great. Ooh, let's see. So can I hide and provide my own up-down buttons for this control? I'd inject something between the text box and the buttons. Injecting something between the buttons is definitely wow. I think this thing, because my injection held the control key down. There is not a way without templating to inject something between the buttons, but before I put my foot all the way in my mouth, I just want to confirm that. I'm fairly confident the template doesn't give you fancy injection, right? So there's the main text box, and then it's just a stack panel with up-down buttons for my data speed control. Ah, interesting. Yeah. No, so I think what you're going to end up with, Izzy, is probably a new control template if you want to inject something there. Like the content for the buttons, you can put your own content in the buttons. That is a thing, right? You don't have to use the pre-canned pack icons that we've got in there. But but to put something between them, there's nothing exposed inside of the template that would allow it. There's also not really anything that lets you even control the position of where those buttons are. And we had talked about different options for people because there's a lot of different ways that people like to do these up down controls. Some people like the plus minus buttons stacked on top of each other rather than side to side. And ultimately it was like, you know what, for a V1, let's just get something out there that works. It seems to be a popular control because people keep logging issues against it, which means they're using it or trying to use it. So it has gotten a lot more attention than I anticipated. I'll say that. Because yeah, I sort of anticipated somebody yelling about wanting to change these properties here for something. So yeah, now I think your easiest option is probably just to snag the template and then roll your own template. Replace it with something that has whatever extra controls you want, maybe some attached properties or similar. Okay, so this is, I think what we're going to actually do is this. Await, text box, move keyboard focus, await, text box. Is what I was just about to ask about putting buttons on the left. Yeah, and that was the thing that I was anticipating people asking about first is the position of those buttons. It's like we just put them in on the right because we had to decide on a style to ship with, and that seemed to be the most kind of idiomatic one. But there's so many implementations that people have done for this same control. I kind of anticipate people wanting to do the same. I'm wanting to look here real quick because I thought, why is this thing not directing me to the right thingy? Took me there a second ago. I want to look and see how it handles those modifier keys. Why is it failing to? Very confused why it keeps taking me here. I don't want to be here. I might just have to go look because I want to do. Okay, I might have to just do this. Send keyboard input. Right, like that's the method I'd like to go to. Why do you keep directing me to the wrong file? Yeah, this is the wrong file. Confused why it can't figure it out. Let's see, text box, send input, and then it's going to be, let's see, keyboard input. Let's see, and I'm trying to remember my own APIs. Keys input, but does keys input support down or just up? Because it should be doing both. But I'm wondering if it's just doing. Hang on. I gotta look now. Let's see. Go here. MDIX. SAML test. Let's see. Convey. I've got too much going on. So let's hide Nikolai's ones. There's some Dependabot branches out there that aren't merging in. I should go fix them. Let's see here. I just want to look at how it handles this key input. Talking about when install an update. Installing a Visual Studio update midstream sort of a bad idea. Okay, so what I am really looking for is input keys, set modifiers, send input, and input. And see, this is where I'm wondering if, do I ever actually handle get key press, create input. Oh, I have to send a modifier keys none to unpress. That's what I want to do. Okay, that's all I needed. Okay, so this should really be modifier keys none. Do that. Okay. Okay, so this should get me all the way there, I think. And we're going to go test the other case. Okay. Test case 1, yes. Test case 2. Value starts at 0. Type in 20, lose focus. So we're going to set value to 0. Oh no, type in 20 is the one that we did. Type in 30. I kind of want to check. I kind of want to revert the change inside of here. I'm a little surprised that this fixes it. So let's grab that delta real quick. the fix. The branch I'm on. This is the old code, so we're gonna grab that so I can A/B test this a little bit. I'm gonna do that there, right? So the assertion before is this fails. And I think the expectation here is that the value should remain at 0, right? And the displayed value on lost focus should probably revert back to the old one, I would hope, right? Because this is, wait, value starts at 2.5, input 30, lost focus, so it should go back to 2.5. So that should go there. Value should start at 2.5. We move keyboard focus, we select all, we type in 30, we move keyboard focus to the button, and then we expect that this gets back down to 2.5. The bug report indicates that that is not the case. I'm sort of surprised at that. Like, I'm not completely surprised the text isn't updating properly, but I'm a little surprised we need to call that coerce. Okay, so that, see, does that align with the bug? The bug view shows 30, value is 2.5. And I think the fix there is just this, right? Is on lost focus, always set the text back, but the value should already be coerced. If we do that, so I'm wondering if that coerce call is doubling up. Because set value and set current value, I thought both went through the coerce. Ah, they do. Okay, so it's okay. So the lack of the else does there. Okay, value 2.5, input 30, increase button click. View shows 30, value should be 2.5. Okay, so now I need to actually grab that increase button. I'm gonna just go back up here and grab this. All right, so if we do this, boom, like that, and then, so just want to make sure I got the setup. So value is 2.5, input 30, and then rather than tabbing away, what this is doing, we want to do plus button click, left click. Right, so we would like to do that. And then the expectation, I would assume, is that neither one moves, right? I'm not entirely clear that the text should change on this one. I kind of feel like the text should remain where it was at. But the value absolutely shouldn't change. So I think my expectation here is this. I do love some unit testing. Yes, this is kind of unit testing. This is unit testing where we actually spawn the window. Okay. Okay, so I think this all works. Okay, so let's just clean this up to cover the user's cases. Right? I don't think we care about the first case because the first case was working even with us doing nothing. Right? But we do need a test case for both of these to cover these cases. And I'm trying to decide if they should be one test or two. I think they should be two tests because the act portion of the test is very different between the two of them, even if the setup is the same. So we'll start with leaving this one as is, and we will say let's do this. Increase button click when text is above maximum does not increase value. Okay. So that goes something like this. Let's see. Because the focus has not left the up-down control, we don't override the text yet. We don't expect the text to change, right? Future Kevin just needs to remember what current Kevin is thinking. That is what we are doing here. Right? Okay. So then lost focus when text is above maximum reverts to original value. Right? So this, we're going to get rid of this one here. And then down here, we want to put this back, get rid of this. We don't need the increase button on this test. So we want to set the focus, replace it with 30, and then the expectation here is that this does revert the value. So we get rid of that comment. That on lost focus here should reset the text value back, and the value should remain at 2.5. Right? Okay. And then I think just because it was called out in the PR, let's just maybe let's data drive this sucker a little bit. Theory, and we'll change it. When text is invalid, I'll put an underscore there. Right, just to separate out the difference in the portions of the test. What are you squawking about? Oh, yeah. So string input text. We're going to do this, and we're going to change this to be input text. I'm actually going to be curious. I think this works just fine. Because the type isn't going to be a... I just want to keep... Why that thing isn't going to this extension method anymore? Let's see. Pulls out the text parts. Argument, get argument. Yeah, it'll two-string it. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Okay, so this is going to be inline data of 30, right? Because that's one of the things. And then we should do inline data of ABC, right? Something clearly invalid. Another case that I want to test. I think just to be real clear, I also want to do 2AB. Right, or 2A, something that clearly shouldn't do it. I'm only questioning this here because these tests are kind of expensive to run in terms of execution time. And so even though with normal unit testing, it would be no question. You throw everything in here that you care to validate. But here I kind of question and go, well, each of these tests can cost like 2 seconds. And it's very easy with these inline datas and data-driven tests to just blow this thing up. But I think that's probably okay in this situation. Okay, let's make sure this test passes. Show me green check mark. Yay. Okay. Show me green check mark. Concerns me that green check mark showed up before it actually finished running all of them. I blame Visual Studio. Okay. But the important part of both of those things passed. So I think here the key change, we don't need to coerce. The set current value will do the coercion for us. But the dropping of the else, I think, is the key change there of making sure that we do actually go back to the text because value, and actually this probably warrants a comment. Because setting value property will coerce the value, we assign back to the text box here. Okay, I think that is the key thing here, is this actually is being appropriately clamped. Like I said, I get a little twitchy when I see invocations of the value change to the coerce value being called from outside of the dependency property. And in general, if I find myself needing this, I will extract this into its own method and do it there. The other thing is the dependency properties oftentimes will cause boxing to occur because we have, in this case, things like decimals being shoved into objects. It's like it's a little wasteful to box it when the alternative is just refactor. Okay, but I think that's better. Let's check here. Okay. Let's see. Adding UI tests. Remove the direct coerce call as it will be handled by the dependency property. There we go. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy now. So we will push that. And then open. Let's see. We will enable auto merge, and then I think there's no reason I can't just blind approve this because we kind of just did this. So the two changes here are, this is unrelated to the change, just because I noticed it. Did I just miss it? Where are my added tests? There are my added tests. Okay, cool. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Let's see. Well, boom, boom, boom. Do that. And then that guy will rock and roll. And so that will get it into 5.3. And yeah, so there's a handful of things in here we may go through and try and address. But I think for the most part, these ones are both going to go through. And then we off to the races we go. Okay. I'm going to put out of my way to the side. Go away, go away. Okay. So now for completely switching gears. Close, close. And we're going to change this up. Okay, so this PR here. This PR here looks weird. So I opened this one against Velopack. Kalen reviewed it, left a bunch of comments. This is the most important comment here because this one is going to impact a lot of things. When you add to public enum members and shared libraries, things go crazy, right? It's bad. This is re-implementing, and I actually have to go to Squirrel Windows. Oh, doesn't work, does it? If we go here, because Cloud Squirrel forked Squirrel Windows, we could kind of look at the docs here. They don't really describe it very well. Where is the MSI bit? They process, update manager, team city, blah, blah, machine-wide installs. This guy here. Right? Yeah, so the idea here is this generates an MSI, and the way the setup installers work is your app gets installed underneath local app data, right? So it's in a user, a per user directory. That's very important here. One, because the user will have access or will have write access to it, enabling them to do the installs without prompting a UAC. right? And there's several things inside of Squirrel Windows and Velopack that, at least at present, make that assumption that the installer will have write access to the applications directory, because it needs write access. It's installing an app. It has to put files there. What the machine-wide install does is it actually adds a registry key. So this MSI will prompt a UAC prompt because it's going to put in a registry key under HKey local machine, right? And actually, let me just show this off. Some people may not know what the registry is. Okay, right? So you get to the registry by pressing Windows key R and typing in reg edit, right? That command there. It opens up a thing like this. For people who haven't seen the registry before, let me just give a brief rundown. This is or I should say, this is old. Okay, right? Registry has existed, I think, since Windows 9X. So Windows 95, I think, may have been the first version with it. I can't remember if it's older than that. Regardless, it's ye old. Very, very, very old. But it is a place to be able to store values. And it's hierarchical, kind of like your folders and files. But instead of folders, and I realize these look like folders because Microsoft gave them a folder icon, right? So you can conceptually think of them as folders, even though they're not folders, right? Inside of folders, you have, and let's get down into something that actually has something useful, right? You have values, right? And these guys here can be different types of values. You can store strings, binary data, 32-bit numeric, 64-bit numeric, multiple strings, and expandable strings. It's effectively a really fancy key value store, right? But there are a couple very important things to note here. For example, the top level items are referred to as hives, right? So you will see people often abbreviate these as HKCU and HKLM, right? Meaning the H key for the current user and the local machine. Functionally, you can kind of think of these, at least in terms of the way the installers look at these, is one of these is machine level, meaning all users, and one of these things is for the current user. There are magical registry key paths that specify programs that are going to run at startup. So HKey local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows, current version run, right? You can tell how many times I've gone here because I rattled that off from memory. This is also the place where viruses and similar used to just love to put themselves, right? Because if you add a particular little registry key in here, right, these are things that are going to run on startup. For example, I run everything. I like everything. Everything is my universal go-to search launcher tool, right? It runs on startup. Right? I didn't write this registry key. When I checked the settings box that said run on startup, it put that registry key in there. But that's functionally how it works, right? And because I am inside of local machine, these are things that are going to apply to all users. Now, I'm the only user on this box, so current user and all users is kind of meaningless here. But for some places where there are multiple users on a machine, that makes a big difference, right? But you have the same equivalent run key underneath the current user hive. What this MSI does is it injects a line inside of that registry that will invoke the setup exe when the user logs in, right? So because these executions happen on startup, and these are just arbitrary run commands, right? This is just on the terminal, this gets entered, this thing fires off. And if we look at what the Squirrel MSI does, is it invokes the setup exe, but it passes an argument, and I think the argument is called like -- check install. And check install just says, hey, if I'm installed, quick exit, no harm, no foul, all good, right? If I'm not installed, run the installer and actually install the application. So from a user's perspective, what it looks like happens after the MSI is run, on next login, poof, I magically get the application installed. Huzzah, right? That's the way it works. It's kind of hacky, right? That's not the way That's not the way anybody expects an all-user install to work, right? When you run it and say, oh yeah, just run this MSI, it magically works. The other big disadvantage is it means every user that is on your machine ends up with its own copy of the application. So if you've got a 1 gig application, that's 1 gig times however many users you got. Hard drive space is cheap, but for some places that matters a lot, right? Like they've got a lot of users or similar. I had one place tell me they had something like 500 users on the same machine. I'm like, dear heavens, why? And it's like it's a shared terminal for blah, 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 blah. It's whatever. So that's the way it works. That's the premise for where we're going, right? So Cloud Squirrel ripped this out during the V3 upgrade. The V3 upgrade of Cloud Squirrel is what got rebranded to Velopack. So if you're on Cloud Squirrel V3 and Velopack are effectively the same thing, just a different name, right? There's some namespace changes and that kind of thing, but it was effectively just rebranded. But the MSI thing was dropped as it was deemed a hack and a pain in the butt to maintain. I have a vested interest in wanting it back. Talked to Kalen. He was cool with it. I was like, you know what? We still need to revisit the MSI, a real MSI, and an all-user install as a long-term solution. But in a short-term solution, specifically because I was trying to go through and eliminate reasons why people wouldn't migrate off of Cloud Squirrel onto Velopack. Right? That's a thing people had in Cloud Squirrel. It got taken away. There was at least one comment on Discord about it, and I'm like, I don't want to have a stumbling block for people migrating off of Cloud Squirrel to Velopack, because functionally it should be a drop-in replacement, change any namespaces you've got, done. That's the end goal. And it's not going to be perfect. Like, depending on how old a Cloud Squirrel you're on, if you're already on the V3 stuff, it's pretty close, but there are a handful of API changes that go in there. So, all of that said, I basically pulled forward the Cloud Squirrel stuff as best I could, but I had to kind of guess a little bit because some things had gotten renamed, some of the cheese had moved, and so yeah. So Kalen gave me a good code review. That's where we're going. Let's go fix up my stuff. Right? So we're gonna come down here, and I want reset local. Don't know where my old one is. And then I'm going to pull up develop. So, hey, no, where's my pull button? There, just pull that up. There we go. Then we'll switch back. Sometimes it's easier to just double click and have it do the switch and pull all at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to rebase because I instinctively rebase always. Okay, now let's go through and address the PR comments. I think I can get those from right here if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Those are all the renovate stuff, doing updates, which is great. This one here, great. So here's what we got. Suggestion to rename from MSI to MSI deployment tool. I think I like that, especially with the comment of we want to at some point bring in a real MSI that actually works the way it should. Right? This is calling this a deployment tool is probably much more accurate. So, why am I? Can I just go Control Shift? Oh, I can. Sweet. Control Shift E works from our review thing as well. Yes, yes, I love it. No, I don't really want you to do that. Thank you for asking though before just doing it Visual Studio. I appreciate that. Let's see, Velopack asset is where we're going. Velopack asset. That is not the right one. C# lib. Yeah, this one. Boom. Okay, so for the application deployment tool. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is going and writing some docs for this as well because I want people to do it. Something else I really want to get to is getting nullability turned on everywhere. I've started turning it on in places, but there's a lot of work there, right? And I would right now the Velopack is 0.0 like 1053 I think is latest release. We're kind of using hey, we're pre 1.0 to make some breaking API changes, like renaming things that were named poorly before, because it kind of feels like now's the opportunity to have some back compat breaking changes. And nullability is one of those things that I would like to kind of squeeze in before we get the 1.0 release. I don't know if I will, but I want to start getting more of it in as I can. Because anybody with warnings as errors on, as it gets turned on, it will start triggering those. Okay, so there's that. That's easy. I don't think that broke anything, but let's just compile this sucker up. It is also going to cause a needed change to occur in building. It's not building because I don't have the solution open. That's probably why my search was so bad. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Compile, please. Because we are going to need to mimic this asset type out on the low side of the fence. Something I'm hoping we get to tonight. We'll see. We'll see how long some of this stuff takes me. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I knew I used it somewhere. Be dumb to add it. Should remove property. Now, these ones here, I think, are actually tied to IPAC options. And I think I made a mistake because we have an auto mapping tool inside of here that maps properties from the CLI commands into options classes, which is really great because we get compile time checking. But I think I don't use it a lot. This project is the first time I've used it, and so I think I went slightly astray on it because Linux pack options and OS X pack options, and I kind of wondered about these when I did it. Pack options. It felt a little off, and it was one of those things that should have been a clue to me. If it feels off, it probably is. And then OS X pack options, because it doesn't make sense to have a build MSI for OS X or Linux, right? Like MSI is by definition a Windows installer technology. Yeah, and this is I think where I came down to why I wanted it there is because iOptions is of type interface, but I think that gets to be here. Yeah, so this is effectively pulling this forward. So the recommendation from Kalen on this guy. So I added a create MSI package, and the argument was this shouldn't live down here in Baseland, and I'm trying to remember why I put it down here now. Okay, because there's this, but what does it actually need? I don't know that it actually needs to live down here. So let's pull this up because this guy here already has create release package. And I think that's probably good enough. No, build setup package is what we want. So if there's no installer, you don't get your MSI because the MSI needs to reference the exe and bundle it in. So this create setup package is actually what we want to override. And this guy has 3 overrides, one of which is Windows. And I believe the argument here is we want to effectively call into this. Now, we've already done the no installer check by virtue of getting here. And we don't need to check target OS. We're now in a Windows specific one. Let's see. Async task. Now, that eliminates this. And I think what I want to do is pull this sucker out and put this guy here, right? And I think I've got enough to do all of this information. I just need to find the right stuff. So if we go back into the base, nope, back into the base. I want to go back up where I cut this. So I am looking for, what was the first value we needed? Pack ID and channel ID. So pack ID was coming from where previously? I should probably look at the diff that I just caused. Before I was getting my pack ID from, let's see, package builder. That's really tiny. Let me make that bigger. Here we go. Okay. So before, my first parameter was create MSI package, but pack ID came from where? Pack ID existed and was being passed through. Okay, so if pack ID was being passed through, it must be declared higher up. Pack ID. So this is just options pack ID. So that's easy enough to achieve. We can come over here. Boom. And this is capital O options. Great. Where did channel come from? Options channel has that. Boom. Once again, need to capitalize it. Okay, so that gets me to there. Asset cache. This one's more interesting. Let's come back to it. Setup exe path. This no longer needs to be override, and this can be private. I don't think we care about any of these. Let's see. Oh, this is turn task, completed task. This was something else I was contemplating going and cleaning up too at some point. Oh, interesting. Why does it think that this is reachable on all platforms? Honestly, I don't know why. This is just it's literally an if with a pass through. So let's just lift this up and out and inline it at the call site. Because there's no reason to jump that if we don't need to. Right, so that goes away, and honestly, both of these should probably move in. Okay, so that gets me the MSI name, but the only reason I need the MSI name is because I was going to grab the asset path from the asset cache. And this needs the setup exe, which I believe is here. Just want to make sure that I create that from the right place. So setup exe path came from the base and is where? Setup exe path is here. I had previously extracted this up and out. So this was the asset cache here. So here's my problem. I don't think the asset cache is exposed anywhere. One of those areas where it's kind of annoying. So the asset cache contains a list of all of the build assets that the Velopack creates. Like an asset itself isn't much. It's just effectively a file and a given type. But the key thing here is when it's figuring out like release entries so that it knows what it's built, or it's getting back all the file paths so it knows which things does it need to move. Like this is what's keeping track of it. So without it here, right, move bag to or similar so that it can find them all. It's kind of difficult. Kind of difficult to deal with. And I guess we need to put it into here? Probably don't. Probably don't. The key thing here is the asset path or the build assets does have effectively a root level output directory. And so it's slapping that on top of everything that goes through. But when we call into build setup package, like this thing's getting the path. I guess if we don't need to put it into the asset cache and we just create it alongside, because there's no need. Is there a need? I need to think carefully before I say this. Is there a need for it to show up in the release manifest? Don't believe so. Because the release manifest, the JSON file, when a Velopack app goes for updates, it pulls the JSON file down, looks at the manifest, finds the updates, right? Figures out whether it's going to do a delta update or a full update, pulls down the relevant packages for that, and then applies them, updates, you're off to the races. The EXE is only there because there is a desire to be able to hit the path and pull that down. I'm kind of wondering. Like, I think it does make sense to put it in there. We don't need it, but I could see somebody else wanting it. But if I wanted to go quick and dirty, right, the whole point of doing this is just to get the path, but I could easily do var MSI path gets path.combine, and then do I have target setup exe, right? Like I could do the, I don't know why this is pack directory. That's not where we want to go. We want to go path.get directory name, right? Target setup exe. So we're going to get the directory that we generated the setup exe in, shove the MSI in there, bippity boppity booyah, we're off to the races, right? And this just becomes target setup exe, and now we're working. The disadvantage of what I've done is we could actually delete it entirely from the assets. For an initial release on a feature that I don't think we want to keep, this is probably not a bad thing to do. Which means I can get rid of this altogether. No one's referencing it anymore. It makes the back end cleaner too. It does mean that Flow doesn't have support for the MSI file. But I'm kind of okay with that because I kind of want Flow to have the real MSI, the actual good one, not the deployment tool MSI. So this no longer needs that. Turn task, complete a task. I think though what we want to do is we do need to check options dot build MSI. Right, so we need that. I'm tempted to do something really funky. I'm probably so just for reference, I'm probably about to throw this away, right? Uh, this feels so wrong, right? Like I either have to have this one be 200 and change all of these ones, because if we aren't going to build the MSI, this is 100% progress. But I'm somewhat tempted to do something really funky where it's something like options build MSI. If build MSI, x divided by 2, otherwise x. Feels stupid. It feels kind of like just to walk through what's happening here. In this case, progress is an action of int, right? This should have probably been like an I progress interface, whatever, right? At the end of the day, it's just something to report back progress because the fancy progress bars we have on the CLI leverage it. Great, fine. This is taking in the parameter and assigning it a new value. But remember, we evaluate the right before the left. So we're going to capture the current passed in value before we assign it here. And we're going to say whatever value comes in, if we are building if we're going to build the MSI, we're going to take the value that's passed in and divide it by 2. Meaning this becomes, 5%, whatever half of 25 is, 14 and a half. This becomes 25, this becomes 50, this becomes 100. Right? So it's one of those things it's a little weird. Right? But we also pass the progress. Actually, do we even need to pass it into here? Oh, because we pass progress into this. Oh, this guy has his own progress. He doesn't do much. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so maybe this is a bad idea. Because what I really want is this progress to work. And then I want to feed in something here. Right? I almost want this to be X. Uh This feels hackier than all get out. This feels very, very hacky. Okay, I think the reason it feels hacky is because I'm reassigning these things. We're gonna change this up, right? Action of int gets setup exe progress, right? And this is gonna get progress. And then we're going to do action of int MSI progress. It's, I don't know, right? X lambda do nothing, right? For the moment. Okay, so we're gonna action of int overall progress, right? So this guy here, I think is going to end up being what actually does the work, right? So rather than because I think the big hacky thing is the way progress is being reassigned and changed, right? We don't want to do that. Let's see. So for starters, we're just going to straight pass X through, right? So we're going to get rid of that, none of that goes here. this becomes setup exe progress. Right, so the key thing here is I want to replace all usages of progress with setup exe progress so that it's responsible for just reporting the exe progress. Make this not stupid or not suck for the moment. Okay, so that's setup exe progress, and then this guy down here should become MSI progress. Right, that way, okay, that's better. Right, so he's going to report back the MSI progress. He's going to report the setup exe progress, and this guy's job here is to figure out what the heck to do. All right, so this guy is going to come in, and so when setup exe first gets called, it's going to pass in a 10. Right, and let's see, have I done this weird? So setup exe needs to then pass into here, and I'm wondering if I really want this overall progress, because I think this can now just we can just do it in here, right? So options dot build MSI. So if build MSI, this is going to get the division by 2. Otherwise, we are just going to go progress X. Right? This guy goes here. What is your problem? Oh, because I can't do that. Right? All right, now I have to think for a second. So setup exe gets in the value. Yeah, I think I set this up in an awkward way because I think I wrote this as fan in rather than fan out. Set that backwards now, which is adding. Okay, in these types of situations, it's important to pause and drink some Mountain Dew. Okay, we now can continue. Okay, so this guy here, is really at the end of the day what we want is a single place to deal with this stuff. And I think all I'm going to do is convert this block body. And I'm going to move this guy up. I can figure out how to type, which is not always an easy thing to do. Wait, vey. Okay, clearly I'm losing it, which is not a good sign. Okay, that goes like that, that goes like that, that goes like that. Right? This thing wants to be a local function. Great. Do the other one. Void MSI progress int value. Right. This guy here for MSI progress. Typing is easy. Typing the right thing is hard. You make a good point, Izzy. You make a very, very good point. Okay, so dang Nabby, you Copilot, did you just get it right? So the other one was divided by 2. So this thing wants to represent the second half. So then it's going to let the values go in, divide them by 2, but add 50 to them. Copilot's smart. Copilot is smart. Okay. That is that. Now here's the added bonus. Have S. That's kind of okay. There's that. There's that. There's that. Okay, so does that address this one? Does that address all the feedback? Because there's the enum, kill the property, kill the property. This should probably just be in the Windows Packer, not in the base class. Combine the Wix stuff with the regular setup task. Check, because right now it's not very configurable. Got it. Done. iPack options removed. Combine this so it only applies to Windows. Okay, cool. So I think we hit all of Kaylin's feedback. Now I would like to run my tests, make sure I didn't break anything. Let's see. So these up here, packaging tests and Windows Pack tests, I believe, is where I left them. Don't know why there's an extra using there. Let's see. And then specified version. Okay, so these are the two things here. This is something kind of cool. I don't know if people have seen this. So there's this XUnit skippable fact attribute that you can grab. And this allows you to skip tests based upon complex conditions. Because normally what you have is just, right, you have the fact attribute. And the fact attribute contains a skip property. And the skip is a string, and if you set it, it'll skip the test. The problem is this is compile time constant and doesn't let you do fancy things at runtime. If you want to runtime determine whether you want to skip a test, you can do something like this. And so it'll let you do a runtime check, throw the appropriate XUnit exception to mark this thing as skipped, same as what the other one would do, but then without all the extra stuff, right? And then you can make this as complicated as you want. Let's see, stupid question. Is there an easy way on Windows platform to get path methods to generate Linux-style paths? Oh, interesting. So you want to be running under Windows, but generate Linux-style paths. Oh, that's a good question, because your general way of doing that is path combine or similar, or join depending on which way you want to go. I don't think. Look though, I thought one of these had an overload, but maybe I'm making that up. Because you can certainly do path dot alternate directory separator character on. If you know you're on Windows, this will get you a /, right? I don't know of another way to do it beyond that, because everything is based on the running platform, because it's platform implemented. Because even things like get invalid file name characters and whatnot, right? These are platform implemented because they vary slightly. That's a really good question though, Izzy. I've never had a need on Windows to generate Linux pathing. I've always just written the idiomatic C# and then just run under Linux. Because that I was actually chasing a bug earlier today in my day job where worked just fine on Windows, failed on Linux. And one of the key things that I knew about the code was that the file system differences between Linux and Windows are oftentimes a potential culprit. And in this case, it was. It had to do with, what was it, directory enumerate files. And Linux was returning the files in a different order than on Windows because there was no ordering applied to the enumerable. And so it came back in a different order, and the code didn't realize this, but the code mistakenly assumed an order, and that was bad. Let's see, I'm writing integration tests, and my app is on Linux, but my test pack runs on Windows. Currently swapping path separators with alt path separators. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to do it. You also need to deal with the root, right? Like your C:\/ as well, because those are obviously not going to work in both cases. But I don't know, aside from string munging, I'm not sure that there is a good way of doing it. There's probably some cool regex for doing it though. Okay. I want to run this test first of all to make sure it works. I'm actually not even 100% sure I'm set up to run this test, so we're going to find that out. This is not a unit test. This is a full integration test. Because these packaging commands like are actually like executables and process starts and all kinds of stuff. So they are not fast, but they exercise the complete system. So when they pass, it provides high confidence. When they fail, it sometimes provides high frustration. Red. Yeah, it does absolutely look ugly. Let me just. There. Yeah, it's one of these things where I think most people are in this position here, right, where they can't get their slashes the right direction. They aren't trying to do something as complex as you are. And even stuff like this always gives me pause because it's like, this like it'll work, but it's not all the way there. And I know there are libraries that try to abstract away the OS for you because people want that level of abstraction for their unit tests. Um, I've just found that those are not that. It's one of those things like mocks are a necessary evil, but if you see them as the solution rather than a crutch, it's that's almost worse. I'm assuming this is going to be failed to find path. Let's see. Let's see. Build. What's the failure here? Hey, Acid Rain, long time no see. How's it going? Um, let's see. Copy link for pull request. If anybody wants to play along at home, we're fixing up a PR that I submitted a couple days ago. That I finally got a review on, and so we are taking a look at trying to address it. I'm just curious why. I mean, this looks like it's success. That's the output for success. So what? Okay. Going good. Just pretending my best to be a DevOps engineer. It's a good thing to pretend to be. Like right now, DevOps engineers make bank. So not that it's not that bad of an idea. Get a Mountain Dew down. Okay, I pretend to be a DevOps engineer every so often too. So this is expecting that there is a file created, and it's saying it doesn't exist, despite the fact that I've got test output showing that it should have done it. Have a good one, Izzy. Don't work too hard. Try to enjoy it. Uh, Circle CI. I've heard of Circle CI. I have not played with it because it is. I've had a couple people that say really good things about it. Oh, is there not a? There we go. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Yeah, like I used Jenkins many years ago and haven't touched it much recently. For at least my open source stuff, I went from Jenkins to AppVeyor to GitHub Actions. But yeah, yeah. Honestly, this is one of those areas where I think it gets undervalued. Um, yeah, like, and that's like everybody said AppVeyor was gonna die when GitHub Actions came out and had a really nice free tier, but they didn't. And I think part of why they didn't is because people overestimate YAML, right? Like it is like even though it's powerful and you can do all this stuff with it, people don't always want that, right? Like Microsoft App Center. So nobody used this. This thing is, I think, functionally dead at this point. But yeah, scheduled for retirement March 31st. Yeah, it's dead. Don't build on this. But this was a full build CI setup for your mobile apps that integrated with um uh was it App Store Connect on Apple and Google Play, and had a way of sideloading your apps. Like it didn't have all the power of the YAML stuff, but it was quick, easy. It did all the things. It did a number of things very simply and easily and worked great, and people loved it. Um, I think Microsoft's thing was, not enough ROI on it, blah blah blah. But I think people underestimate how like DevOps is hard, and sometimes making something pretty and simple like this is really right. The hard part with simple is you have to leave enough hooks to where people can do the complicated stuff when they need it. But if you make the simple things simple, it just feels good. It feels polished. Okay, so we're gonna run this guy one more time, and I think I just want to pause and go look at this temp directory because apparently it wrote out a file, and I'm just wondering if maybe I mucked up like my pathing or similar. Because let's see, this should be test squirrel hyphen app win deployment MSI, right? So speaking of my good friend, bring. So there is no MSI out with that suffix. So that makes me feel sad. So clearly there's nothing there. So the test is accurately failing. Uh, but I'm wondering now if the issue is because it's not in that asset pack, it's not being copied to the appropriate directory. Let's see. Object file, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Love it so far. Going to build a few fun jobs out to update Raspberry Pis as a test and then use those to teach a friend how to automate his IT infrastructure. Awesome. That is a great way to do it. Like I often tell people, build a project that you like for fun and then go from there. Let's see. So I'm curious. Is this MSI file path is what is going to drive where it gets written to? My gut reaction says this path is bad. So let's grab it here. Let's grab it here and see what MSI path is pointed to, because it's invoking the CLI tools, and the CLI tools are returning proper exit codes. So where is this path? Okay, so we are inside of temp 5, right? So there's that. I want to go there and take a quick gander. Okay, so we have all of this stuff, which is kind of what I would expect in all of these cases. Great. So if I step over this, do your thing. Okay, that should now have There it is there. Okay. And then, oh, there it is. It goes to move it to the release directory, which is temp 4, not temp 5, which is a temp directory. So because it is not added to the asset cache, it doesn't get moved in the final step, therefore it doesn't get written out. Because this is a very, very, very important step. So the question becomes, what is the best way to feed, to get it into here? Might have to go put that enum value back. My undo buffer is lost. Let's see. So can I make an educated guess here? The solution is to ensure it does end up in a known location all the time, or search for it. So in this case here, so the basic steps that this thing is going through is this, and I'll just collapse these guys down a little bit. This base builder goes through and runs a bunch of steps. Oh, Video Craw, thank you for the subscription. I appreciate it. But it runs through each of these individual tasks, right? You'll note it has this execute progress async. It's just so it can draw pretty progress bars when you run on the command line. But it's got all of these tasks that it builds up and executes. And the very last one is it goes from its asset cache and says, hey, go through and move everything from your that you know about into the final release directory. Because some of these things may do work in other temp directories, but most of them are going to be there. And so this asset cache is what's keeping track of, hey, here's all the files, because we don't want to move everything from the temp directory into the final output. It's kind of like the difference between your OBJ directory and your bin directory. Right now, it just exists in the OBJ directory, and this is what moves it from OBJ to bin. And I didn't add it to the cache, therefore it didn't get moved. And at the end of it, it deletes out the OBJ directory. And so the lovely MSI that it built gets torched. So then to your question, it's mostly move it to a known location, but it's the thing that's tracking the locations is this build assets. But this build assets isn't being passed out anywhere. It's only being used here. Yeah, so it is literally a local value here that is not being passed to any function, and it just creates up. Yeah. So as far as it's concerned, it built an MSI, but it thinks the MSI is just another temp file that's sitting alongside the other stuff. So like it built up all of this stuff, and functionally it knows that it needs to move some of these items across, but like some of these here, like this create portable package, it's got all these temp files. We don't want to just blindly copy everything over. But I do want this thing added to the set. So I think the solution is probably going to be a way to share this asset cache out. I'm a little hesitant to move it blindly. I kind of feel like some of these other functions need to have it there. Because there's a bunch of these virtual get main exe search paths, all of these extra things that go along with it. This code signing, create portable package, create delta packages, and each of the platforms kind of implement these a little differently as needed. And so I kind of want to, why is this one? Oh, Linux needed to override it. Okay. Got it. While I'm in here, I can't resist temptation to... Oop, nope. Not what I wanted to do. Collection initializer. Doo-doo-doo. At that point, this thing might as well be an expression-bodied member. Because you are not fancy. Oop, can't resist. Can't resist. Collection initializers are just too cool. Must use them. Kind of scanning through these. Because I had to do this effective title and similar stuff to be able to share some logic. Because the MSI needed access to this, but this title was also used to generate the new spec file that gets used. So I pulled them into shared functions, but in this case, this should really get converted into a source generated version. This is beautiful for source generator. I think what I'm going to end up needing to do is pass that build asset down. I'm trying to decide whether I pass the build assets class out, which kind of exposes a lot, or if I pass out like a func or a delegate of some kind. Because functionally, what I want to do in the Windows runner, this is the line here that previously was leveraging the asset cache. And really, all I want to do is get the appropriate path for an MSI, which this path works, but I need it added into the asset cache as well. I kind of like the delegate idea. Delegate idea might not be bad. Let me go put the enum back first of all. And now shoot myself for deleting it. I got a little too carried away. Should have waited to delete until I had waited to delete it until I'd actually run the test. That would have been smarter. Is the build process itself exposable? Because I'm thinking then you could tap into the build process and look for the package and copy a duplicate to the destination, which would keep your original in the assets. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Let's look. I think the answer is it could be. I don't believe it is now, but it could be. So down here in the post process, right now it's just shelling out to this asset cache. But there's no reason that this couldn't also live in a virtual function. Yeah, that's an interesting idea too. Maybe I like that better. The only challenge then, and this is one of the things, I'm trying to avoid storing state outside because right now everything can run in parallel and is nice and fast, and so I like the idea of it being a parameter that gets passed in. If I don't add it to the asset cache, then I have to keep track of the MSI and or search the MSI when I override the output. Copy it over. I could do, it would require wrapping this little bit up in a nice function to share in both places, which is totally doable. It is absolutely doable. Well, or is it? Because I would need the exe path, which means once again I need to then extract something from it. Gives me pause again. I don't like. Yeah, I think I almost like. Well, regardless, let's put the enum back first of all. All right, that we're gonna put back first before I get too carried away, and I need to put back the name change, MSI deployment suggestion. I think we take it, or yeah, think I want to do that just to be really clear that this isn't because the thing we don't want to do here is have people think that this MSI is a valid MSI installer. Like it is a valid installer, but it's not a replacement for the actual installer. It's an MSI that is used to deploy the installer. I don't know how to capture that. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do here is change this guy up a little bit. I think we're just going to tack something on the end here that's uh, uh, let's see. And that goes up here. This no longer needs to exist. That can go away too. But what needs to exist is here needs to take in a relative path asset type. Then this needs to be asset cache make asset path. Actually, I guess I can probably pass this as a method group. The wrong return type. Oh. Yep, it absolutely does have the wrong return type. Parameter, string. We pass it that way, then the caller doesn't need to know about it. Does mean this has to change to match. This is almost a case. So the thing that I don't like a little bit about this is the fact this string is not named. There's no hint here. This is one of those cases where func and action are nice, but I'm seriously tempted to do a custom delegate type here. Just so I can ascribe a meaning and a name to this parameter, because it's not really clear what this is. Now we're gonna roll with it. Let's see. So this should have 2 compile errors, I think, in the OS X and Linux builders. The other 2 derived classes. I was gonna get it building and then make it work. Just in the one. Thank you. Surprised the Linux one doesn't overwrite it. It must not need it. Oh, it doesn't need it. Oh, I guess it's just using the portable one, so it kind of makes sense why it would, because Linux doesn't have a setup package. It just has a portable installer. So, okay. Kind of makes sense. It doesn't generate it, doesn't need it. Okay, so down here then, this guy actually needs to leverage this. So var MSI path is going to become create asset. We're going to need to do, that's not right, but we're going to use it here. Velopack asset type MSI deployment tool. That goes there. Yeah, exactly. I just want to check on what I had previously before I get too carried away. This doesn't show me what I want, so of course, opened in the wrong browser. Just want to look at what I had done previously on the other side. Those go away, that goes away, that goes away. Actually generating it. I'm just looking for the oh yeah, I made the error messaging better too. Okay, so this is the setup exe path. So this took MSI name. Oh, so it just fed the name in, and it relied on it to use the right, because the asset path has everything it needs. That just that goes there. This then goes away. Yeah, when portable self-contained works, it is sweet. I absolutely agree. 100% agree with that one. Okay, so that now should just work. We'll go rerun the tests. I'm very happy to have tests for this, by the way. This is one of those areas where, like, some of these tests are a pain to set up, and if you try to, uh, there's been a number of people who've contributed to the Velopack repository directly, so huge props to them. We have on our docket to do better contributor docs because the setup for the repo is non-trivial. Like, you can kind of work your way through the GitHub action stuff to figure out what the setup needs to look like, but like there's a lot there because there's Rust binaries that you need. It's not just fire up Visual Studio, hit F5. So it's kind of it's a big boy. Okay, we're gonna go for gold now. We're gonna go for gold. Straight run. And let's explore. Show me green check mark. I would like to see a green check mark. Yay! Okay, now does the version override work? Probably. Yeah, I'm sort of holding off running all the tests because not really worth it. Because you can see some of these tests, like, again, these are not really unit tests. These are full end-to-end integration tests. And I shouldn't say complete end-to-end. They're hitting straight API runners. But this also then actually cracks open the MSI to verify that particular versions are actually set. It's not a great test to make sure that everything in the MSI is set up just perfectly, but it is good enough. Good enough to give me high confidence. Okay. Now we come back here, and I think just check the diffs. I'm gonna move my big head to the other. Okay, so this one here, we changed up the name of the enum and changed up the description. Great. Stage. Let's see, I want to bring you down a little bit. And actually, I'm going to shrink this up just a little bit so I've got a little more space to work. Okay, we deleted the thing off the interface. Good. Pack builder, we're going to come back to. Linux pack option, we deleted the property. I realize my big head is blocking it. My apologies. At the bottom, so I can't do it. Never use unit tests. Work on a project large enough to need it. We keep looking for ways to implement them in things like Slacker. Yeah. So that's actually a really good point. Some people get really hung up on the idea of unit tests. I think what's important is that your app is tested, right? Because any app that is actively getting used or any software that is actively getting used is functionally being tested by the end user. It's just some categories of bugs are very expensive, and so you want to catch them early because there's been plenty of studies that show the further out a bug gets, the more costly it is in terms of like developer time and effort to track it down, fix, get a thing out, lost reputation, etc., potential lost finances, and those types of things. Like that's where the idea of we got to test, but it doesn't have to be a unit test. Like unit tests are good and they catch a particular category of bugs, right? They're good at that. And I usually tell people every type of testing has a blind spot or a negative, right? There's a pro and con to every type of testing. Manual tests work great. Cons, you're usually done by humans, and unless they're very carefully scripted, it's easy for the human to forget things or miss things or make mistakes. And they also take a lot of time because the human only goes so fast. So it's like, but for some projects, that's a very acceptable trade-off. right? It means the other pro is you didn't spend any time writing any extra stuff, right? It's just I manually go clicky 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 and make sure it works. Let's see. Where I get hung up is developing a unit test for Slacklord is that even though the JSON has the same dictionaries and keys, the order of them specifically is what could cause the bug. Yeah, and that I think that's you're asking the right question, right? Because when writing tests, I often tell people the first and most important question to answer is what am I trying to test, right? What am I what type of bug or thing am I worried about happening? Because sometimes you're writing a pinning test where it's this functionality has to be exactly this way, and if anything changes it, I want to guard myself from future Kevin, you know, being stupid and making a change that breaks this, right? So if it's like the order of keys in a JSON file is important, maybe I write a test that reads the JSON file and asserts on the order of the keys, right? But then the other question is, well, what's the cost of that bug coming in, right? When is it likely to be caught? If it's likely to be caught right as I deploy and it's unlikely that it's going to like bring down everything or it's not going to take long to fix if it does, okay, there's a pro and a con trade-off there that's potentially worth considering, right? Because some projects don't need it. Like I have a little budget application that I've built that is used by me, and me. And I have some tests in there, probably a few more than I actually need, because I got annoyed at the amount of time I would waste when there was a bug and when I'm trying to balance my budget at the end of the month and numbers aren't lining up. It really bothers me when it's because my software isn't reporting the right number and it's on me. It's like, dang nabbit, that I just wasted an hour of my life to do it. So that's the cost of the bug to me is it wastes my time because then I chase a ghost or a phantom transaction that's not there, and that's very annoying. Um, so I have a certain number of tests in there just to kind of guarantee good data integrity coming through, but I don't test everything because some of it's like the cost of a bug showing up in certain areas are like, eh, it's not necessarily all the way worth it. So yeah, um, I think those questions are probably the right way. Maybe the solution is a test JSON export from Slack, which has every case I can think of with image uploads, formatting, and then I randomize the order of each entry. So maybe the picture first, then a thread. Yeah, then randomize again, and maybe it's a thread reply, then a picture. Yeah, and there's depending on what it is, that that almost falls into a category of like what's called fuzz testing, where it's I'm going to I'm going to randomize things. The one thing if you do randomize, um, make sure that you set a seed or output the seed or similar, because the random class in C sharp, you can tell it a starting seed, which means it will output deterministic values from a given seed. The default seed is based on the current time. Um, but the problem with that is you can never rerun at that time if there's a problem. And one of the most frustrating things is like a test failed, and when you rerun it, it goes green. And it's like, oh, that worries me because that tells me that a particular random order has a problem, but I can't rerun to see that order to know what it was, right? So yeah, if you do random, like random isn't bad, just make sure that you can rerun the same set of random. That's the only advice I have because I've done that a couple times where I will just like dump like I will grab like the current ticks and I will specify the seed in and I will output that so that if there's ever a problem, I can go and dump that back in. And yeah, can't fix the bug if you can't repo for 8 million cycles. Exactly. Lisa Clark, hello, welcome. Welcome. We are just getting a PR fixed up and likely merged here shortly. That drops that goes there. That clears all that out. But yeah, so that style of testing is wonderful to be able to go through and do. And again, it does kind of capture that type of bugs. Like I work on one piece of software in my day job where the user provides input files, and these files are across the board. Some of them are valid files, some of them are invalid. And part of what the software has to do is figure out which is which means the input set is the literal universe, and it is frustrating because you can't test that because the input set is just way too big. So we've got a set of regression tests with like known problematic files and that kind of thing. So it's great, right? Like we can verify we aren't regressing, but I can't test my way to victory because the input set is just too big and it's unknown. I have no idea what I'm going to see. Random string of ones and zeros. That's what's coming. And so it's uh, a little more difficult, and so you have to then start kind of looking for alternate testing strategies. Yeah, exactly what it's like importing a Slack server with 4,000 JSON files. JSON is format, but the data inside what's known can be anything. Yeah, exactly. And so I think the key thing there is potentially have a couple cases to test known situations, right? Like you can generate a handful of different JSON files, like you said, with thread, image, etc. Right? Make sure that those ones work, and then say, you know what, I'm going to call it a day, because sometimes, and this is actually what we did with that other project I was describing. We started off, we had a handful of test files, we made sure they all worked, and we went, this is probably wrong. But we don't know what's wrong yet until we see more data. And then each time we had a problem, we just added another sample to the test set. And so over time, it grew as we encountered more issues. But the tests were there specifically to just prevent regression. So it's like it doesn't need to be perfect out the gate, but at least if you start building them up as you see more things, you can go, oh shoot, well this thing failed. Let me make sure I've got a sample that covers, whatever that thing is. And then at least as you move forward, you aren't ever going backwards, right? It's like, I know I've seen something that looks like this in the past, so I want to make sure I still handle it. And then it gives you a little more freedom to change things up. You still got to be a little careful because it's like, shoot, do I remove this if condition? Like, we haven't seen a case that does this, but maybe it exists. Answer is, it might. Who knows? Let's see. Addressing PR feedback. Let's see. Let's see. Move the MSI generation to the Windows pack from the base class. Let's see. Rename the enum to better reflect purpose. I think those were the key changes. And so then we push, force push, and we force push because we rebased. And then it opens on the wrong monitor. There we go. Okay, so then it's going to resolve some conversations. Comment, resolve. Great. Let's see. Removed. Comment. Resolve. Moved. Derived class as. We'll just do that. Kalen Smart. You will see exactly what happened. Boom, boom. I just feel awkward hitting resolve without doing this. Done. Did remove the property off the interface. Done. Comment. Resolve conversation. Okay. Shouldn't be here. Remove property. Removed. Then resolve conversation. And then I just want to jump over and look at the combined diff here. Make sure there's nothing weird. So these are properties. These ones have to be here for mapping, but these ones, the Velopack build project may end up being moved and changed up a little bit. We've run into a couple tiny snags with it that, like, it's totally doable to make it work, but it is increasingly becoming a pain in the neck because it is duplicating the same stuff that already exists in the CLI. So we're talking about maybe wrapping or similar. Here, that is just the namespace change. Some of these changes weren't the ones made tonight. This one here bit me on some testing, and so I fixed it because it bothered me. That one was just using the named value with the deconstruction rather than otherwise. Because this was creating a value tuple just for the standard out, just to call it back by there. And I'm like, nah, let's just pass standard out all the way through. That's what is intended, and that reads a little cleaner. So Wix platform stuff for being able to reach into the template, the candle and the light. Better error messaging, because before it just said couldn't find file. I had it include where it's searched because I had trouble reading my own error message and went, you know what? I would really like to be able to see more. Okay, so this is what we were just changing. Passes that in. These are prior changes because the MSI needs the title and the authors as well. Let's see. Pack title. This one was kind of dumb because this was falling back to pack ID, but pack ID was already something that was being no coalesced on it. So it was like, let's just not do that. Okay. There. Collection initializers because I can't resist. There's the shared methods that can be used in both places. Let's see. This is the Windows pack command. So this is actually the VPK CLI. Worth noting, this MSI deployment tool is not something that, because it's kind of a hack in the way that it's even working. Oh, that's a bug. Does this thing? That is wrong. Windows pack command. Go fix that. It's setting an argument name. And it's kind of a dumb thing because the argument name isn't something that's going to need to exist. This is validation on validate must be valid MSI version. Great. Right, so this ensures correct things are passed in. Argument help name version. Yeah. This is just a switch. Like you can technically pass false or true to this, but that's an unusual way to use a CLI. We are going to pretend like nothing happened, amend, and force push. Nothing to see here. There was no mistakes. It's fine. It's totally fine. Okay. Then we're going to refresh this sucker. And then going to continue going down this path. Okay, cool. I missed that before. This one here is just referencing the DLL inside the test project so that the test project can pull apart the MSI to actually read the information out of it. Collection initializers, collapse the using statements, minor cleanup, more collection expressions because I love them very dearly. And then these are the new tests that we just saw run and pass. Those are fine. Made some methods static. Made some stuff read only. This is another thing that's probably worth knowing about Acid Rain. If you're on a newer .NET, there is a random.shared because quite often you want to declare a single random instance rather than multiple instances. Because with modern hardware, if you declare two random instances in close enough succession, because they're using the current date time value, oftentimes the clock in a system, like it's pretty accurate, but there's a window of opportunity there where both instances could get the same starting seed. And so it's kind of a fun bug when people do new random inside of a loop or something, and then they're like, well, I got the same random value every time. It's like, well, You're just running on fast enough hardware that your seed is always the same every time. Okay, these are just uh, vendor assets that are being shoved in. Build, 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 build. Oh, I just realized I didn't check to validate that these were added into the NuGet package when it's built. Let's go validate that real quick. So if I do this, so because I've overridden the git kraken command for open in VS Code to be open in Visual Studio, I've lost open in VS Code. So my hack is to just type code space period, and now I've got open in VS Code. Okay, let's my back over here for a second. So I want to go find the when we build the NuGet, how are we? I can probably just hunt vendor. How do we get the vendor stuff inside? Build targets. Okay. Add NuGet vendor libs. Okay, so it's going to just slurp up everything inside of vendor. So vendors slash star star, it'll slurp everything up, add it into the package. It'll be underneath the vendor directory. Bippity boppity booyah. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure how that worked. Sweet. That actually makes it really nice. There's the updates setup exe because it's just grabbing these from a different directory. But if it's underneath the vendor directory, which is where stuff isn't in the way. Inside of here, this is where we've got like the light exe, the candle exe, their configs, relevant DLLs for it, and then the template. So, and this Wix template is basically copy paste from what it was in Cloud Squirrel. I think I had to change a handful of curly braces, I think, because the Cloud Squirrel brought in an entire library for doing effectively a string replace. Like, we don't need a templating library for what is a string replace. You need a templating library when you're running templates, and this is regexable. So I regexed it. Okay, cool. So that makes me feel better. That makes me feel better, and I'm going to click that button, request re-review there. Okay, and I think that, oh, it's showing something failed. Failed. The test failed on Ubuntu? Which one failed? Let's see. Expected. Checksum failed. Let's see. Update manager checks. Checksum should use SHA-256. This looks like something that is a timing issue, if I was guessing, because this does not look relevant to what I did. And since these tests previously passed, I'm going to assume this is not overly relevant to me. Okay, let's check over here. Let's see here. Uno SDK. That one's still running. That one's going to rev a bunch. Some of these I'm tempted to just merge. Because like this AWS SDK should be fine now. But I may wait. Kaylin's been tweaking our renovate config, and I don't want to get in the way of something that is working. This guy is still running. This branch has no conflicts with the base branch. I know it doesn't. I rebased. Yeah, our build pipeline is kind of ridiculous. Like, it is. It's kind of insane. There's just a couple jobs in there. I wonder why we build all of our samples on. I guess we're validating that the pat command works on all of them. That's probably worth it. That's probably worth it. This is the other drawback with something like building an installer technology like this. The things that people might try to install is also once again the universe. Um, like they're going to have an application or something that runs that they want to install, and our job is to get it into the end state. Okay. Cool, 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 cool. Okay, so that gets me there, that gets me there, that gets me there. I think that's good. That's good. Given that my Mountain Dew is empty, I might end up calling it right there for tonight. I did not sleep well last night, so it would probably be good to do so. I'm going to potentially just watch this and then re-kick this failure once it's all the way done. Because I want to see these test ones rerun. I want to know if it's a legit failure or not. This feels like something that's not a legit failure. Yeah. So we'll rerun, we'll retest, we'll see how it goes. So cool. Well, thank you everyone for coming in and hanging out. I am probably going to be running headlong into a bunch of Velopack development stuff, so expect to see more of that streaming or more commit stuff. I got to balance a little bit because some of it is closed source, but even the closed source repos I can kind of show on stream as well. Mostly because I'm one of the founders, and my partner said, "Yeah, sure, go for it." So that's pretty much it. So we will potentially dive into that, and yeah, Acid Rain, always good to have you around, man. So feel free to hit me up with more stuff if people got questions, but kind of hoping to start testing out some of the Velopack stuff that we've been building and like plug installers in for the material design demo app. I want to get the Avalonia sample stuff rocking and rolling and get more docs and that kind of stuff out. So expect more of that coming soon. With that, I'll tell everybody happy coding. See y'all next time.